back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Engineer Hassan, the political analyst and the former vice chairman of the Farmers Syndicate. Thank you very much once again for being with us tonight.
Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
We will be going to the first report of the Daily Debate for tonight, focusing on the main topic of the episode, which the statements are of the the Egyptian embassy Foreign Affairs regarding the conclusion of the Memorandum of Understanding, or the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Iran, which is a major turning point in terms of achieving security and the regional stability in the Middle East. We'll be having more details in the upcoming reports, so stay tuned.
Switzerland announced on Friday that planned talks following up on the deal to end all hostilities in the U.S.-Israel war on Iran had been postponed, hours after U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance's departure for the Alpine country was cancelled, and Israel pounded Lebanon. The signing of the accord this week was intended to end the conflict in Iran, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and begin a 60-day period for talks on wider issues, including lifting the sanctions on Iran and Tehran's nuclear program. On Friday, Iran's chief negotiator Mohammad Bagher warned that Tehran would give a decisive response if the agreement was breached. Meanwhile, Egypt's presidency welcomed the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Iran. The presidency described the agreement as a major step towards reducing regional tensions and restoring stability in the Middle East following months of conflict and diplomatic efforts. President Fattah al-Sisi has welcomed the signing of the memorandum by U.S. President Donald Trump and Iranian President, stressing the importance of the agreement in preventing further escalation and opening the door to a new phase of regional de-escalation and confidence building. The statement praised U.S. President Donald Trump's leadership and wisdom and his commitment to resolving disputes through peaceful means. It also commended President Trump's sincere reach a memorandum acceptable to both sides. Furthermore, the Egyptian presidency welcomed Iran's decision to engage positively with mediation efforts and its decision to ultimately sign the agreement. Egypt also expressed appreciation for the efforts of Pakistan and Qatar in facilitating the negotiations that culminated in the agreement. It also extolled the efforts of Saudi Arabia and Turkey, Egypt's fellow members in the quadrilateral mechanism. Cairo said it hoped the memorandum would represent a turning point towards a broader process of de-escalation, cooperation and confidence building across the region. Moreover, Egypt has viewed the development as an opportunity to create a more favorable environment for addressing other regional conflicts, particularly the Palestinian cause, which is the central conflict in the Middle East and a key prerequisite for achieving a just and comprehensive peace in the region. In that context, Egypt reiterated its appreciation for Trump's effort to secure a ceasefire in Gaza Strip, expressing hope that U.S.-Iran understanding would contribute to broader regional calm, including a complete halt to Israeli attacks on Lebanon, Israel's withdrawal from Lebanese territory and respect for Lebanon's sovereignty, unity and territorial integrity. The statement added that Egypt hoped forthcoming technical negotiations between Washington and Tehran would produce more comprehensive and lasting understandings capable of consolidating regional stability and reducing tensions.
back. You're still watching the Daily Debate. Engineer Hassan, Shabaan, before the report we were speaking about the future of the region, that there will be a new Middle East and a new treatment by the major players in the region with the countries of the Middle East. How do you see the role of Egypt within all of those circumstances and the new updates, especially in the backdrop of the meeting that took place for today between the foreign ministers of Egypt as well as the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Pakistan, and their meeting with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi?
Well, Egypt was always a key player in the area, actually. And we were the first to sign a peace treaty with Israel. We've got a lot of exposure politically, and I think the countries in the region should benefit from our experience. Very impressive little things that took place during the few last months, actually.
Yes.
Did you notice that our president, President Sisi, visited the Gulf countries, and security was excellent. Yes. Because there was no threats. We are playing politics. Our relationship with all the countries in the area is very wise right now. We're trying to cool off the fire in the Middle East, and I think a country like France is a little bit upset from what's going on in the south of Lebanon, because Lebanon was always the country that France really always protected and wanted Lebanon to be in peace. Yes. So I think France is withdrawing the attention of President Trump that Israel is trying to sabotage the agreement of the ceasefire between Iran and the U.S. by, igniting the situation in the south of Lebanon. Definitely, Iran could actually lead the Hezbollah to ceasefire and respect the general environment in the area, because it is not really very wise to keep on igniting the situation in the south of Lebanon and giving the chance to Israel to expand, because every time there is a problem on the borders with Israel, whether it's Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, whatever, yes, Israel tried to expand. Well,
it's an opportunity.
Right. Let's be smart and prevent Israel from trying to expand, actually. Enough is enough. And if you want peace, the method to reach peace is very well known. You cannot just ignore the Palestinians. We have to consider a certain period of time till the final peace in the area reveals, actually. Like, borders of the countries in the Middle East were really just on the map just before the First World War. Yes. I mean, everybody lived, in peace, and there was no problem. All the problems started when you started to have a country that, use violence in getting what they want. Yes. I mean, Israel will have to give up this attitude, and when we spoke about Egypt, Turkey, Pakistan, Saudi, and Qatar, we cannot really ignore the presence of Israel in the area. Yes. We're going to have to deal with this fact. I mean, so I think the coming era is a very important era in the history of the area, actually. And hopefully, with the new leadership of the Arab League, we will see something different. Also, forming, this Arab United Army,
Yes.
will actually relieve a country like Egypt from the heavy burden of spending money over armament and training.
Yes.
Because merging the financial resources of Saudi Arabia and Qatar in the same channel with Egypt, we will definitely, within few years, we have a very strong and modern army in the area, and we will be able to protect ourselves.
We have the human resources.
Of course,
Yes.
of course.
We're protecting the region, not just Egypt.
You have to consider that you have a responsibility to Africa,
Yes.
because a lot of the Arab countries actually lie in Africa. So you have a very special situation. Africa is very close to us, and we could actually play a major role in developing Africa and having agreements with Africa. I hope that wisdom will reveal, and disputes will stop, because the people in the area deserve peace and tranquility, because the trip was very hectic actually.
You mentioned that Israel has to give up on this attitude, on those agendas, the big Israel agenda, according to the statements of the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. Someone has to make Israel give up on those expansionist ideas and those opportunistic schemes that we have seen within Syria, within Lebanon, within Palestine, of course. But on the other hand, we have seen a rift between the American President Donald Trump and the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and the attacks launched by the American officials against Israel in the past week, as you mentioned, that Israel is trying to sabotage the agreement, to be sabotaging the memorandum of understanding between the USA and Iran. If the US cannot do it, who can?
Actually, President Trump could play an excellent role in the coming era, actually, because he's a free man, actually. I mean, he is very smart. He's eager to get a Nobel Prize, and this is his chance, actually.
Yes.
If you want to get a Nobel Prize, let's actually have a very solid peace in the area, and developing the area is the key, actually. You have to consider the successful role of Egypt in the conference of peace that took place in Sharm el-Sheikh,
Yes.
Gaza,
Yes.
that was dealing with Gaza. That was very successful role, actually. And I think Egypt have a lot of wisdom in in their political attitude. It is noticed by everybody. We are different from how it used to be a decade ago. We're wise, and we are really keen in developing our country and establishing an everlasting peace in the area. So I think President Sisi and President Trump will be able to establish this everlasting peace, solve a lot of problems in the area, the water in the River Nile, in East Africa problems, all of these problems. I think President Trump could actually play a major role and regain his falling or decreasing popularity worldwide. If he succeeds in revealing peace in the Middle East, he will definitely deserve the Nobel Prize.
Regarding the bilateral ties between Egypt and the United States, because in the past few days we have seen a meeting between both presidents, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the American president, in the G7 summit
Right.
in the French city of Evian. And the statements, I would focus on the statements of the American president on the relationship between President Sisi and President Trump. Ever since the first tenure of the American president Donald Trump, I think he was the 45th president back then, because he is the 47th now, and he spoke about the special relationship between both presidents and the special relationship between both countries. How do you think this will be affecting positively the future of relations between the US and Egypt, and for the Middle East in general, and more specifically the topic that you have just mentioned, the water file, the Nile water file, and the conflict between the participating states?
I think it's an excellent chance that President Donald Trump could actually utilize to get this everlasting peace in the area. The U.S. could play a major role the major role in this issue.
Yes.
There is a lot of ideas that were actually put on the table some time ago, and actually Africa is wasting a lot of its resources, and the U.S. with the technology and the resources of the people, the countries in the area, could utilize these wasted resources. Meaning, in Ethiopia, you're losing 400 billion cubic meter every year that goes to the Gulf of Aden.
Of water.
Of water.
Yes.
You can actually reserve all this and finance a project by Saudi, for instance, and this 400 million cubic meter of water could be distributed over Egypt, Saudi, the Palestinians, if you allow me to say that, if they stay in Nakab, the face of the area will change. We could get a double share of water to what we are getting right now. We could get another 50 billion cubic meters.
Yes.
So I think here in Egypt, we will salute President Trump, and we will vote for him to get the Nobel Prize if he doubles the amount of water that we're getting from the River Nile.
Yes, exactly. Engineer Hassan Shabaan, the political analyst and the former vice chairman of the Farmers Syndicate, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Appreciate it. I had to talk like a farmer in the end, because we needed this water.
Yes, we all need it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Anytime. And this brings us to the end of the daily debate for tonight. However, I will be leaving you with the latest presidential activities of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi that took place over the past week, all wrapped up in the upcoming report. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
President Sisi met with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and Engineer Mahmoud Ismat, Minister of Electricity and Renewable Energy. The meeting reviewed the executive status of the second phase of projects to reinforce the national electricity grid. President Sisi received his brother, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the Brotherly State of the United Arab Emirates, who paid a fraternal visit to Egypt. President Sisi arrived in the French Republic to participate in the G7 summit held in the French city of Evian, where His Excellency was received upon arrival by Ambassador Dr. Tariq Tahrouj, Egypt's ambassador to the French Republic, and members of the Egyptian embassy in Paris. President Sisi met in the French city of Evian with Mr. Antonio Costa, President of the European Council, on the sidelines of the G7 summit. President Sisi met in the French city of Evian with Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, on the sidelines of the G7 summit. President Sisi in the French city of Evian participated in a session entitled Existing Crises and Ensuring Stability in the Middle East, held within the framework of the G7 summit. President Sisi met in the French city of Evian with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz on the sidelines of the G7 summit meetings. French President Emmanuel Macron received President Sisi in the context of the President's participation in the G7 summit. President al-Sisi met with President Donald Trump, President of the United States of America, on the sidelines of the G7 summit held in the French city of Evian. President al-Sisi met in the city of Evian with President Lula da Silva, President of the Federative Republic of Brazil, on the sidelines of his participation in the G7 summit. President al-Sisi participated in a session entitled Ensuring Safe, Rapid and Effective Deployment of Artificial Intelligence as part of the G7 summit held in the French city of Evian. Via his official Facebook page, President al-Sisi wrote, "I welcome the signing by His Excellency President Donald Trump and His Excellency President Masoud Pezeshkian of the Memorandum of Understanding between the two countries." President al-Sisi attended the graduation ceremony for the third batch of the Imams of the Ministry of Religious Endowments, class of Imam Hassan al-Attar, at the Egyptian Military Academy. The ceremony was held at the Elite Hall at the headquarters of the Strategic Command Center in the new capital.